Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm sad.
Yeah! Why are you sad, Andrew?
Because we're here today to talk about episode 365, Clara.
That we are. And I am going to set it up now that if I say Clara at some point, I know I'm wrong, but I'm not going to correct myself.
That is okay. Did you, as a child, is that how you read it?
No, it's one of those, you hear it both ways names that I then tend to
like
struggle
Anna
with.
and Anna?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Where it's like, even if in my head I know which one of these things you are, that does not guarantee that I will be able to say the right one. And I feel bad about that.
Yeah. No, I do too. I think it comes from... Yeah, I mean, at least in the Anna, I met somebody named Anna, and she was pretty insistent about going by that. Nobody else called her Anna, so now every Anna I meet is Anna, until corrected or proven otherwise.
There you go.
That's my Clara story.
Yeah, I feel like
that's why I'm so sad, guys.
I feel like if you're going to go one way or the other, that's kind of a fun way to do it, because I feel like most people don't.
Oh, for the Anna situation?
Yeah, go Anna first.
Yeah.
So you get to be a little unique.
And I think that's the same thing with Clara.
Yes.
You say Clara.
I mean, I don't, but I might.
Do you know any Claras?
No, I mean, just the one from Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. What season is that?
That is the second half of season 7.
Okay, yeah.
On forward.
Is that, who's the doctor for that?
It's the last
one with
Matt Smith.
Okay.
And then she goes into the Peter Capaldi era as well.
I don't think I watched any of the Peter Capaldi. I saw some of the Matt Smith stuff, only because every girl I dated in high school was obsessed with him.
Good looking man.
He was. He really was.
No, still is.
Oh, is he? I don't know.
Not that much time has passed, Andrew.
I haven't kept up with him.
Anyway, not the point of what we're doing here. We're talking about Clara. Yeah, it is. So it's written and directed by Phil Lawler. I'm trying to think if there's a better Phil Lawler episode. There probably is, but
yeah.
this is upper echelon.
No, this is top tier. Gotta be top 3. I don't know.
I mean, he's responsible for a lot of Blackguard stuff, so I don't want to.
Yeah, but I mean, the Blackguard stuff is cool and all, but for a 30-minute just basically bottle episode.
Sure.
This is
it's extremely well executed.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it does a lot for the show and for the characters, and yeah. It's iconic for a reason. I hate accrediting any sort of positive attributes to Phil Lawler, but I gotta call it when I see it.
Yeah. The man's not right. There's a reason he's written, 250 episodes of the show, and it's not just that. Yeah,
because 4 of them were great.
Well, yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking through right. He's responsible for Waylaid in the Windy City, which I feel have
is pretty iconic.
Right. I mean, yeah. I would give that a decent amount of weight. I mean, he did a name, not a number. I feel like we cannot undersell that.
Well, and yeah. How fantastic of an episode that is for the show.
Yeah. So,
and he did Camp What a Nut. Oh my goodness. Sure. All right, fine.
Sure. But all the Blackguard stuff I think is worth commending him from and commending him for. And this stuff is, obviously quite good as well.
But he also did The Cross of Cortez, Dylan.
Which I think is I don't know. I haven't listened back. I'm sure it has problems.
I think, definitely the plural of problem.
Yeah. But, I'm not gonna, can't be too hard on the man.
No, certainly. Well, and like you said, it's important to put Clara in context here, and yeah, like this is iconic Phil Lawler, and I wouldn't have really known that it was Phil Lawler. Like
no,
if you said it was Marshall Younger, I would have been like, oh, okay.
No, my giveaway for why I was like, I think this is a Phil episode is just that it picks up right where the last episode left off, and the last episode was Phil.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Otherwise, I would not have gone like, oh yeah, this is so clearly Phil Lawler, because it doesn't have the Lawleriness that I dislike.
Well, it's a very serious episode, so there's not a whole lot of like joke forcing that he can do.
Correct. No, I mean that's a large part of it. Like I don't particularly like his comedic chops.
Yeah.
This episode doesn't have jokes really. I also think he has a problem with like telling rather than showing. Mm-hmm. And this episode's pretty minimal that he doesn't really get into that territory.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works well. And yeah, we've got some good performances in here. Dave Arnold comes in once again, this time playing Peter Portland. We have Julie Heron playing both Peggy Portland and the airport announcer. Rachel Hoffman as Annabella Lee. Julie Heron, Rachel Hoffman don't really have anything notable wise, but then of course we've got Aria Curzon as Clara, and
she kills it.
Yeah,
I mean, as much as she sounds like Baby Mandy,
right? Well, like it's obvious why they bring her back on the show.
Yeah.
Like you get this, like she has to do so much heavy lifting in this episode as a very young child, and then it's like, okay, well, you pull that off, obviously we are going to bring you back as one of our town's characters. Yeah. Like that just feels like a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, that is really funny. And it's also kind of cute that like the voice actress that played the girl that Whit couldn't adopt ended up being one of the girls that Whit spends a lot of time with other girls.
Yeah.
It's a cool kind of full circle thing for the show.
Makes the drawing in the treasure room that much better. Famously Andrew's favorite episode of Odyssey.
Yes. Totally don't want to light it on fire and throw it out a window.
That's true. You totally don't want to do that.
Nope, not at all. Anywho, moving on. Arson aside.
My number one episode.
That was your favorite one? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it was. Great episode.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
We need to get back into
this. We had a whole bonus episode.
Look, we're going to have plenty to talk about just talking about this episode.
Certainly. Is there any other context we need to get through?
Not really. I think we can play.
Is this the first time Paul Harlinger and Alan Young are like playing opposite each other in
an Odyssey episode? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's worth noting.
Sure.
And kind of cool.
It's their first interaction. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the first time Jack has interacted with Whit, period.
Yeah.
On the show.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. Is the young Jack and Whit episode before this? It might be.
Yeah, because
that's on the Changing Times.
Yeah, and it's how they establish why Jack's there.
Correct. So yeah. So never mind. But it's the first time we have them interacting as adults.
Mm-hmm. And I think well, here let's play the promo and then I'll get into my theory.
Your theory. Ooh.
She's sweet, innocent, and all of 6 years old. But on the next Adventures in Odyssey, she threatens to blow Jack and Whit's longtime friendship apart. Listen as Jack recounts an emotional tale of love and loss, and love again, and why Clara is the missing piece to a long-forgotten puzzle. It all comes together on the next Adventures in Odyssey.
That was the wrong music choice.
Yeah, what if you put Billy Joel piano music over Leonard Cohen lyrics. This is what you get.
That was rough.
Their relationship's getting blown apart.
Yeah. All right.
Wow.
And it's also weird to be like, these two men are coming to blows over a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like, we're fighting for the heart of this child.
Very cool and not at all age inappropriate. So I don't know if I wouldn't call it a theory, but I think that it's interesting that their first interaction together this episode is so serious and like
Whose first interaction?
Paul Erlinger and Alan Young, because it is a relationship that is supposed to be so strong and like go back so far with like a new voice actor and everything. I think that it's an interesting choice to start it on a more somber note, which allows, like, Whit isn't particularly somber much in the show, and so by doing it via flashback in this, that I feel like they're able to skirt around whatever maybe lack of chemistry might be there, or maybe unsure voice acting from Paul Herlinger. You know, I just think it's an interesting choice of how they got their feet wet to kind of get around what may be lacking in the chemistry department.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily read it as like lacking chemistry, but it is like an interesting thing to be like, we're going to establish the relationship of these characters by like transporting us to a different time before they actually have their on-screen interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So right. So we basically pick up right where last episode left off, which is funny for two like non-consecutively named episodes. But we've got Eugene coming in to get his luggage, which was just extremely well set up in the last episode. And then we've got Jack here trying to escape, and he says like 3 words and then like goodbye Eugene and tries to like walk away, and Eugene like chases him down, and he's just being like very like short with him. And I think it's a really good performance from Alan Young.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And the way that Alan Young does so well in the absence of speaking, how much emotion he can convey, and like in the I'm going to say as few words as possible, but there's going to be so much emotion in these words.
Sure.
Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually after Eugene wears him down, he reveals that like the last time he and Whit were together, Whit said he never wanted to see Jack again.
Yeah.
And
which crazy. I mean, if you haven't heard this episode before, the idea that Whit would ever say
would ever say that to someone, the fact that like Jack's been here and been the Whit stand-in for so long, and we've just kind of been operating under the assumption that like, oh, they're like friends and what, like, and I think it also works with the Jason relationship well, because you get it seems reasonable that Jason wouldn't know or wouldn't understand the extent to which they had a falling out.
Yeah.
Because he's already grown at the
point,
time that they break up, like that their friendship falls apart.
Yeah.
And so like Jason being affectionate towards Jack and calling him Uncle Jack and all that stuff makes sense and is like, in no way surprising. What is a little bit, and they kind of skirt around this, but it's just like Whit had to know that Jack was in town working at Whit's End for a while, because he and Jason were talking established. And so, but the episode doesn't necessarily contradict that idea.
But it doesn't acknowledge it, really.
Correct. It's skating around the edges. And the idea that, hey, Whit knew that Jack was working there doesn't break anything. But it is just like a funny realization to be like, there's some like kind of janky continuity stuff. This was very clearly not the plan from day one with Jack.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know that they were ever going to have
Wit
Wit
come back
again.
Yeah.
At that point. And so his character is set up differently than it is here. There's probably some ways in which you could really try and like poke holes in this plot, but I don't care because they make it, what they do is they keep character consistent even if continuity isn't.
Which is good.
And that matters way more to me where I am in life and in coverage of this than that every little detail
makes sense
lines
perfectly.
up.
No, yeah, 100%. And when it comes to evaluating writing quality and all of that, like, does it actually feel like something these characters would do?
Right.
Yeah.
I care. Right. I care about that way more than does this fit the timeline established in the previous 360 episodes?
Yeah.
I'm just
sorry. 5 years in, I'm a bit tired.
Right. Well, it's same as the like how old is Connie conversations or whatever. Like it's just like it doesn't ultimately matter.
No, certainly not.
It's fun to like bring up and poke fun at from time to time, but like, does it affect the enjoyment of my show that the continuity isn't like perfectly orchestrated in the way that something like Young Justice is? And it's like, no. It makes me appreciate Young Justice even more, but it doesn't.
When was the last time you watched Young Justice, Dylan?
I mean, I've watched episodes in the past month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Good for you. Yeah. I mean, you're not really a TV rewatcher, so.
Correct, but I'm doing it with other people.
Lovely.
Don't rewatch it by myself, really, but ever. But, I've been watching it. Been watching it the whole way through with friend of the show, Michaela Moeller, for the past
lovely
year or so. So
fantastic.
That great show, and everything is time-stamped, which is unbelievable. Anyways, not the point of this podcast. If you want to hear me talk about Young Justice, I did an episode of another podcast talking about Young Justice. So.
Oh, that's right. How long ago was that?
Like 4 years.
Yeah, I guess it's been a bit.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we finally
jump into the story.
Yep.
And Jack's saying it happens right after Jenny dies, and Wit's like, Jenny Wit's wife? And Jack's like, yes, Jenny Wit's wife.
Yep. Thank you, Eugene, for establishing this for the audience.
Yeah, certainly. Very wonderful.
Well done.
Wallerism.
He
but poked his nose out somewhere.
Sure.
I did not know that Jack was from Nebraska or something. Or at least
so he was
there.
running an orphanage in Nebraska. I don't know that he was from Nebraska.
They said, like, take him back home to Nebraska. Which I guess, I mean, the home can be he's living. Yeah.
Correct. Because he's from the same place as Wit.
Which is Ireland, right? Scotland?
They didn't have...
I don't know.
Yeah. We don't need to do that. So there is, I mean, there's Scotland there. There's also, but like, I think Wit grew up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, there's, who knows?
Yeah, because they moved when...
After
his wife died, or his mom died, right?
Yeah, but then you also have his stepmom is Irish.
Yeah.
So
and there's a lot of him
Scottish. Fiona Donnerell, that's a Scottish name.
Yeah, that's very Scottish.
So, yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? Not Nebraska.
Once again, we don't need to talk about the timeline of Odyssey. It gets messy, and who cares? So what we do know is that Jack's running an orphanage in Nebraska while Jenny dies. Like around the time.
While Jenny dies.
Around the time that Jenny passed. And so he decides to take Wit out there just to get him away from it all. This is before Wit owns Wit's End. And yeah, I don't know, Wit's being curmudgeonly and bitter.
Which is, again, very strange to hear Wit in these attitudes. And that's why I was kind of like, oh, that is weird that they would pick an uncommon phrase for Wit to have Paul's, like, kind of first solo shot
Yeah. This is right. This is a big episode for Hurlinger, and I think it's an incredible episode for Hurlinger. But yeah, it's crazy to have him like play traits that aren't like what we see of Wit now.
Yeah, like it would make so much. Not to hold this up, but like it would make a lot more sense, at least to me, if they went back and had this conversation via a kid's argument at Wit's End, where like Jack was like sitting awkwardly in the corner and avoiding Wit throughout the whole day or whatever, and then two kids are fighting, and so they get to tell the story and yada yada. Jack and Wit make up. Like that sounds like a lot more of what Wit's natural characteristics are that are presented in the show, or at least the dominant characteristics. So I just find it pretty interesting and cool that I think
you think it's out of character that Jack tells the story and not Wit? I'm sorry,
No, I'm thinking that it's uncharacteristic that this story is brought up because of a distinct conflict between the two, as opposed to like being together,
like that they're
awkward.
Still in conflict, like that it's not a hey Jack, let's tell that story of the one time that we hated each other to show that you can overcome that.
Exactly.
This is still like the wound is still open here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's there's a lot more wrestling with like very real feelings of like, I mean, a child not getting adopted and all of that. Like, there's a lot of very serious feelings happening that I feel like, it's just an interesting choice that that's what they would do with Paul. But love it. Love the episode. Sad. Very sad.
Yeah. So while Wit is walking around being curmudgeonly, Jack gets pulled into like breaking up a fight. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Wit's sitting on a bench, and Clara, little Arya Curzon, walks up and and just asks Wit like to move because he's sitting on her.
What's the name of the?
It's a Mr.
Yeah, Mr.
Chuckleford.
That's what it is. There it is. And that was one of the reasons that I knew that I had heard this episode so many times, was when I heard the name Chuckleford. I was like, oh, I get this. I've been here before. And then obviously like Arya Curzon is like a really iconic voice to remember. Like, just saying, like, there are certain lines once Clara started speaking that I was like, oh yeah, no, I've heard this episode plenty.
Despite last episode you saying, I have no idea what that is. Why are you sad, Dylan?
Yeah.
That's a direct quote. I'll play back the audio.
Please do.
You can't see it, but he's gesturing towards a wall.
Yeah. I love visual bits and audio mediums.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, no. So Wit is having his interaction with Clara, and Mr. Chuckleford sitting in Mr. Chuckleford's seat. And is it Annabella comes up and starts...
Annabella Lee.
Annabella Lee. What a nasty name. Actually, not really. It's very sweet. But, I can see it being nasty.
She is nasty.
Wit defends Clara from Annabelle Lee,
correct.
Who's calling her crazy.
Right, for having an imaginary friend. And then Wit's like, actually, no, like, I'm hearing Mr. Chuckleford too. He slips into being the Wit we know. Mm-hmm. It just works so well. Hurlinger kills the performance. Like, you just go from, like, jaded grump of a Wit to, like, oh, he can't help but, like, soften his heart being around a kid like this. And, like, it sets up, I think, part of the reason it makes sense for him to start Wit's End. Mm-hmm. And we've never covered it on the show, but, like, the very, like, jaded, like, frustrated, angry kind of Wit is similar to what we see in Recollections. Which is, an early episode about Wit getting Wit's End. And how it was something that Jenny wanted that he didn't, and they have their tussles about that. and whatever. And it's just like, I am sure that was homework in preparing for this episode, both in Phil Lawler's writing, but also in Herlinger's performance here, to go back and listen to Hal Smith do it there, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because they feel very much in conversation with each other.
Definitely.
And I love the little bit that, like, yeah, as soon as Annabella Lee leaves, leaves, Claire is like, Mr. Shackelford doesn't actually talk, right? And was like, yeah, I know. But I think we just made her question that.
Yeah.
And
which is hilarious and fantastic.
Yeah.
And like, you're right. Like, Whit just seamlessly slips into that role so perfectly that it makes all of this. Yeah, it makes all of what they're doing behind the scenes as far as introducing new actors and everything just feel like non-existent almost.
Yep. Yeah, it's easy to see how they made this episode and then went, oh shoot, we're not gonna write Whit off the show.
Yeah.
Like, as we talked about last episode, like, that's still very much in question during like this whole album, but it feels like you make an episode like this and you go, okay, nope, he can do it all.
Yeah.
Like, we're keeping Herlinger around. This is gonna work.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Clara runs off and Jack comes over and explains that, her parents passed away in a car accident, the last year. And that, Jack thought that they'd be able to, help each other through their loss.
Yeah.
I believe he says that to Eugene, not to Whit in the story. But he explains that they were kind of inseparable for the next few weeks. And that this was the first time that Whit seemed to be happy since Jenny passed.
Fair and real and like, dang. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so Jenny,
Clara.
Freudian slip. Clara leads, we jump back into the story, and Clara leads Whit to this, place that she leaves Dusty that's in this tower, and she's got like her collection of stuff here. And it was just it's really sweet. It also adds like a extra level of like weight and brilliance to the Novacom era Tony and Brianna thing,
yeah
where like they've got this stash in an old like abandoned building that then that's gonna get torn down to become Whit's End too. But like the whole idea is like, what'd you say?
I said the squeakquel.
Yeah. But like the whole idea with that is that this is like all their possessions left from their family. It's like, it's the other time that Whit almost adopts some kids. And I just think,
poor guy.
I just think that being such a direct parallel, whether intentional or not, is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. The fact that it turns back around. And yeah, I would almost would love for them to have leaned more into it. And maybe they do. I don't know. Did they name drop Clara in that episode?
I don't believe
it's been like 4 years since we covered it. Probably 5 at this point. Hard to remember. But
yeah.
Yeah, no, it is such a fantastic performance from Paul, and the writing is, again, surprisingly, showing and not telling, with him being led up and the stairs and the kind of back and forth play that they're having together, and then with the blanket and they sit down and it's it sounds dusty. I don't know how to explain that, but it sounded very convincingly like they climbed long wooden steps to the top of a dusty tower that was messy and full of junk.
Yep. And Clara shows Whit her coin collection, these really valuable coins, and he looks at them and kind of reads off the dates and is like, this is... He starts
wow, you've got a 1976 nickel.
Right, but he starts to say, like, oh, these aren't and then she explains like how she came to them and that they were all gifts from her parents. And that's, I mean, it's great. And then Wit is kind of like pulls the ring out of his pocket and it's, this cheap ring that turned Jenny's finger green, but it was
isn't he wearing it?
Oh, is he wearing it?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you might be right.
I can't say how many times you have rings in your pocket that you aren't just wearing. But I
don't know if his do something that would fit Jenny's fingers fit Wit's fingers.
True. That is an excellent point.
But I don't know. But regardless,
maybe skinny Wit.
he shows Clara this ring, and explains that it's not worth anything, but that his wife loved it and she wore it even though it turned her fingers green. And
it's so sweet.
Yeah, and this is the first time in the episode I cry.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that this episode got you too, because it made me choke up like multiple times. Yeah, it's so, I don't know, so precious, and I don't know, love is beautiful.
Yeah.
Hot take, I know.
Yeah, and they're, Wit starts to get choked up thinking about.
Oh my gosh.
Thinking about Jenny, and Clara's like, that's, why I don't like thinking. It hurts too much.
Oh my gosh. I love kids so much for when they talk like that. Because it's true. And like they use very juvenile and plainclothes words to describe really complex feelings, but in a lot of instances, that's the best way to describe them. You can wax poetical and use big fancy words, but in reality,
poetical.
Wax poetically. Wax poetical is my... Never mind. It's my favorite Wes Anderson character. Like, you can wax poetically, but in trying to describe these feelings that they're having, but in general, like it's when a kid is able to reflect what you're feeling in very simple words back to you that it feels so, at least to me, like powerfully human, and then also like crushing, where it's like, oh man, in all of these ways that I'm wrestling with all this 6-year-old girl just saw right through me.
Yep. Yeah. And then we jump out of the story for Jack to explain to Eugene that, like, he set this up from the get-go. He kind of was hoping that they would be able to help each other heal. We jump back in with Wit reading Snow White to her, and this is where she introduces the way that she can get rid of bad dreams, which is by saying "Go away, bad dream, boo." And
that kills me.
Yep. And Wit then asks the thing that you should never ask a kid. Just because, like, you don't.
No, it's so bad. It was so bad. Literally, the minute he said that, like, my heart rate just spiked.
Yep. But he's like, would you like to come live with me?
Yeah. And
obviously, she's very excited about this idea.
Yeah.
And it's just like, from the second that's said, exactly what's gonna happen. But that's not a criticism.
No. Well, and we glossed over it initially, but when Wit and Clara initially meet, Jack is like super impressed by Wit and everything, because Wit is the first person Clara's opened up to since she's been there. She's been very shy and reserved and all of that, and so and
Jack keeps coming back to this fact of, like, Wit used to be a teacher. Like, he's good with kids.
He's an award-winning teacher, apparently. I don't know if that's stated before this episode, but put it in the canon, I suppose.
There you go.
What awards do teachers win? Is that like a box top thing? Like,
I don't know. And so then Wit, like, basically when she says yes, he like runs to go talk to Jack about this, and he
busts in.
Yeah, bursts through the door after Annabelle Lee, who's the secretary in training, holds him up. Mm-hmm. And he bursts in and is just like, I want to adopt Clara. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple there.
And they're like
what? We're adopting Clara. And it gets so tense in the room.
Yeah.
Understandably so. Because... yeah, Whit is just, he's fuming, he is acting, yeah, I mean, he's a man who has been wrecked by grief, who finally, like, clawed his way out by attaching himself to this girl, and now she is...
leaving him.
Yeah, like, now he's just discovering that, oh, you know, she was never actually mine, like, I don't have the level of control here. I can't make this happen. And the Portlands excuse themselves to go find Clara, and Jack explains that, like, they signed the papers 6 months ago. There's just been a whole legal mess. And Jack's like, I didn't know that you would get to this point. I thought when I, like, paired you two together that you would help each other, but I didn't know this was going to be the result. And yeah, Whit holds Jack responsible of just being like, well, you didn't tell me that she was already, like, you let me get attached to this person who I could never have. Mm-hmm. And on Jack's side, he's just like, I didn't know that it was going to be this much, this quick. Like, I basically, like, I thought we could have conversations before it reached this point. I wasn't expecting you to, like, burst in here and be like, I'm adopting her.
Yeah, no, basically, yeah. I thought this would help. I didn't think that this was going to be your, like, getaway car.
Yeah, and Whit just, like, screams, like, I'm not going to let you or anyone else take her away from me. I'll take it to court. I'll, battle it out if I need to. And Eugene kind of interjects and is just like, that doesn't sound like Whit. And Jack's like, yeah, but this is not the Whit you know.
Yeah.
Like, this is a man wrecked by grief, who's just holding on to whatever he can to try and get through it. And they have an argument where, right, Jack calls out Whit for being selfish. It's just like, look, like, this couple is going to be able to provide for her in ways that you can't.
They have a mommy and a daddy, and
they
they
haven't been able to have kids of their own. You've already raised 3. Like,
yeah, you've had your kids, which was my thought, where I'm like, this 70-year-old man should not be adopting a child.
Well, he's gonna live for another 40 years, so he might as well.
Sure, I suppose, but even then, it still makes him like 88 at her graduation.
Oh man. But yeah, and then we find out that she's run away. That Annabelle Lee, like, came in and
they can't find her.
Well, we find out that Annabelle Lee overheard.
Oh, yeah.
And went and told Clara, and that's why Clara ran. And so she's disappeared, and Whit's like, I know where she is, and I'll take everyone there. Like, he finally has a moment here where he's not like, I know where she is, and I'm not telling anyone, so that she can be like, he knows the right thing to do here.
He's and like, no, I know where she is.
Yeah. Yep. And so he goes and gets to talk to her while the rest wait outside, and he explains that he that it's going to be really good for her, and that he can't give her what they can, and, like, you can tell he's not that even, like, right, he's still angry, but he has recognized what the situation is and makes the decision that is better for Clara very quickly.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I don't know if it's something that you relate to, but I think when you're put in a tough situation and then you have to explain it to a child, it forces you to grapple with the more holistically with what's actually happening. And it, you'll say words that you don't necessarily feel, but they are true about the situation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you kind of then orient yourself towards what you just said.
Yeah, which is very much what he is doing here.
Yeah. He's like, I am in unspeakable amounts of grief, but like, I have to basically regurgitate what was told to me so that I can convey to you that, like, I still care about you, but I'm trying to make the best decision for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's not my decision. Because,
right.
They have legal precedent.
Yep. And, yeah.
They give each other...
He gives her...
This guy.
The Jenny's ring, which is when I cried a second time.
Yeah.
And Clara gives Whit the coins.
Yeah.
And yeah, then Whit walks out and says to Jack that he never wants to see him again.
Yeah. Well, because he says the, like, you used me, like, this is, is very much, like, how could you not consider my feelings in this? Which is fair to a certain extent. I think as far as, like, helping your friend grieve, throwing him around a bunch of people that he's likely to get attached to in a very volatile situation is not the best way to do it. Not to say that Jack wasn't, like, successful to a certain extent or that it didn't work, but I think that there are other places that he could have gone to help him process his grief, and even other kids that he could have spent time with in a more, we could cut and paste this situation into Whit is a Sunday school teacher and one of the kids, there's like a foster kid there or something, and he wants to adopt it. And then there's a little bit more established difference between the two, whereas Jack is, at least from my perspective, bringing Whit in to form an attachment with a child and bringing that, like, so that the child can become attached to him, even though there's already documents signed for them to depart.
Yeah.
Which is, like, feels... I definitely resonate with Whit's frustration given the circumstances. I don't think that Jack was intentionally trying to use him, and I think that that's incorrect. But it was very reckless and, like, clearly inconsiderate of potential consequences, considering both the parties whose lives he's messing with being Clara and Whit.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a really good job of writing two characters who are not in the right in this. With both Jack and Whit having, for their, right, Jack did a good thing with good intentions, but it didn't, but, like, overplayed his hand.
Yeah,
a little bit.
That's exactly, I think that's
like,
a great way of putting it.
And, right, the flip side is, right, Whit, went off the deep end and became unreasonable in response. And it's like you see a guy trying to help his friend and another guy trying to process his own grief. And they're both not acting in ideal ways, but they're acting in real ways. And they both are, like, it just does a good job of establishing that friendship. You understand why this was a moment of separation with them, but you also understand why it can be reconciled.
Certainly, yeah. Well, and, like, as close as Jack and Whit are, like, it makes sense that Jack would try and do anything to help his best friend through the biggest loss of his life. And, I'm certainly not above making a mistake like that by any means.
Yeah.
I think I'm more acutely aware to it just because of my sensitivity for kids and all of that, but I think, it's very real, and I think that's one of the things that I love the most about this episode is how organically messy it is in a lot of ways. It doesn't really feel contrived in a way that I feel like some Phil Lawler episodes do, and it feels very real in a way that hurts.
Yeah. It's also just a impressive performance for like that Hurlinger is able to sell that transition of I'm in the room and really sweet with Clara to I'm going out and I am bitter towards Jack.
Yeah.
And like that is quite a task being asked of him. And like I think it works pretty well.
Oh no, I think it works great. I think it's all left in what isn't said in in how flustered he is. He comes out and it sounds like he wants to say something much meaner than what he actually says. And so you get a lot of that that emotion present in the nicer words, even though they're not nice.
Yep. And we have this little exchange then with Eugene and Jack, where Eugene's like, oh, Whit just directed all of his anger of the world towards you. And Jack's like, yeah, but what I did was manipulation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he explains that, he came to Odyssey to clear the air, but then when Whit was already gone, he decided to kind of stay as penance. And then is still prepared to leave here. And it falls in line with Jack's not like cowardice in like a mean way, but just like Jack's very non-confrontational.
Yeah. If somebody wants something from Jack, they're going to ask him for it. He's not going to initiate something off of a presupposition.
Right. And the idea that Jack got a letter from Whit to come to Odyssey, which we can read as Whit extending that olive branch and being like, okay, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
And then he's not there when he arrives.
Which I can see how that would read to Jack as
that's
much more intentional than it was.
Yeah. They pull that trick off well, and you can see why he wants to run here. But he doesn't fully escape because as the call is made for boarding the plane, Whit runs into the airport and says, Jack's like, I gotta go, my plane's boarding, and was like, look, this will just take a minute, I just want to say I'm sorry.
Yeah that didn't make me cry, but it definitely choked me up.
Yeah And he then breaks out Jack sticks around for a little bit, and he asks Whit's forgiveness, and they have this good exchange, and then Whit pulls out a letter from Clara, and reads that to Jack, a letter where she thanks both Whit and Jack for their time, and she
look how grown up she is, and
yeah
it's so devistating. But also
they do use the beautiful young woman line where I'm like, why is that always the qualifier?
Why you gotta be beautiful?
But I understand what they're trying to say, but that is I feel like that's a very it feels very just weird Christian of just
why are we
look at how much you've grown up.
Yeah. Look how high your heels are.
Yep. But the actual meat of this being that Clara is so thankful to both of them for that time and for the fact that she went with the Portlands and has grown up and seemingly has a faith of her own, and this is the last time in this episode that I cried.
Wow, so 3 times?
3 times.
Wow. That's impressive. That's got to be a record, right?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
As far as Odyssey episodes we've covered, I don't think I've cried more than twice. This one was tough. But so good.
Yeah.
Oh, and the thing that they don't know, we're yet to mention, but Clara, or Wit sent Clara's coins back to her.
Yep.
And,
yes, but she couldn't return the ring because it had been so worn. That it eventually broke and turned her fingers green as well, and
that made me do a gulp, like my fingers green too.
Yeah, and so Wit begs Jack to stay, which leads to Jack then starting another fight in just like we've overcome this. Now we can get back to jabbing each other like friends should.
Yeah.
And they go off about
childhood friends should.
Correct. And they go off about these buried shoes from the 5th grade and how Wit's got to tell them where they are, and
where did you put them? And Wit's like, I swear I didn't do it. It was this other kid. Yep. And Jack's and you and him were in cahoots.
Right. And Eugene interrupts to just be like, this means we're good, right? And they're like, yes, it does. And then we find out that Eugene's bags are en route to
Hong Kong.
And we end with Jack and Wit sharing a laugh over that.
Yeah. So fun.
Yep. It's a great episode.
It's so good. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, the old man spending too much time with young girl of it all is a little upsetting. But beyond that, like, I think that's just a product of when this was made and everything, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't. If you see it as a grieving older man, like, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm more concerned of the stranger spends time, like, stranger old man spends time with young girl that doesn't have parents.
Sure.
Of the orphan of it all.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to read it with the worst of intentions, you can do that.
Well, maybe that's just because that's what I'm kind of trained for when it comes to social services and especially child protective care. Like, yeah. I'm very much like, you're gonna talk to that kid? You better not do anything wrong in the next 5 years. Anyway, no, yeah, it was a great episode. Do you have any final thoughts on it though, Dylan? Anything that you didn't get to that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we ran the gamut pretty well here.
Yeah, we mentioned this before the podcast off mic. I was trying to remember where I had heard this episode so many times, and I'm pretty positive that it was a episode released on the official Adventures in Odyssey podcast when I was in like middle school. So it was one of those ones that was iconic, and so much so that they released it, so I had infinite access to it.
There you go.
Yeah. Even then, it was not one that I I'm sure I listened to it plenty, but I'm sure it was in the list of episodes that I didn't want to listen to.
Sure. Yeah. It's quite the episode. But I'm happy to have listened to it again after all these years and to have talked about it with you.
Yeah. See where Arya Curzon began.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a beautiful young girl.
Andrew. Do you have anything you want to...
married now.
Who knows? Do you have anything you want to plug?
Well, are you going to plug Asteroid City or should I?
You can plug Asteroid City. That's fine.
Me and Dylan, as of recording this, just recently saw the new Wes Anderson movie, Asteroid City, together, and it was great. We saw it with a bunch of friends. Dylan did all the heavy lifting, as he normally does, and And he got a huge group of friends together. We all went to see this movie, and it was fantastic. It was so much fun. Highly recommend the movie. Very great performances. It's well written. It's easily one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies, if you are into that sort of thing.
Wow. Look at that.
Are you uncomfortable with how much praise I gave you?
No?
Okay.
Man, do I have anything that I want to plug here? I think I'm just gonna skip plugs. I'll co-sign Asteroid City. I had a good time with it.
Lovely.
Good movie.
Yeah. Dylan is reserving opinions until he rewatches it. I am not.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not reserved. I don't know. I liked it a lot. It's just hard to know where it fits into the greater Wes Anderson canon on first watch.
Oh no, certainly. That is fair. That is certainly fair.
As someone who has seen all of his movies multiple times,
yeah.
Yeah.
Even Bottle Rocket?
Dude, I've seen Bottle Rocket so many times.
Really?
Yeah, Bottle Rocket's great.
Huh.
Anyway,
right.
my plug for this week is Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson's debut. It's good. Watch Bottle Rocket.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right.
The Clara to my...
And with all that being said, we will be back next week for Solitary Refinement. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.